Now that I've got the hull up in the air, I can get under it. I've got brakes or planks of wood. So not only do I have the straps tight, but I have the planks. So in case something happened, the planks would catch them. So I can get under here. Now I'm just going to work these um, nuts loose from the bottom of the hardware. And instead of using blocks, sometimes boat builders will use blocks and then put a washer on it. They've used a nut with a integrated washer on it. Not sure exactly what those are called. It looks like it's pretty common throughout the boat. Here's what it looks like. And that it's got like almost like a snap look to it. This is what was underneath the flange that connected the hull to the deck. So, and these were all rotted off. So it's a lightweight, almost like a snap-on nut slash washer. Probably just made it faster for them to get it on the boat. Like I said, this would have been probably upside down when they did it, or they would have had it up in the air like this so that someone could put the hardware on while another one was slapping on this fastener holder. So I'm going to keep doing that and get this hardware and other things off the boat. Yep, first piece of hardware coming off. Maybe. You maybe need a little persuasion. There we go. There's the Atwood bow light coming off. And off to the chromer once we get it all off the boat and inventoried and packaged. So there were only 2 of these deck angles. There should be 4. The holes are still there. Some other things I'm noticing that don't look original, but I can always go look at some of my other boats. I've got, I think, 10 or 11 Lake and Seas now, and lots of photographs. And I don't remember the steering cables having fasteners on the deck. These are called windshield deck angles. Used to be made by Taylor. You could buy them from West Marine. Now they're discontinued. You can't get these anymore. So I buy these on eBay all the time, try to salvage the good ones. This one is not too bad, but because they're pot metal, they really don't do well, especially if they're not taken care of. So I have a lot of these. I collect them just for this occasion. So I probably won't even bother to send these to the chromer because they're so bad. Curious about where the other 2 went. So just another thing to find. So here's an interesting dilemma. I can't get the bow cleat off until I take the foam off the bottom. So I'll save that for a later project, but I've got to get that out of there so I can send it off to the chromer next week. So little thing you got to do. Certainly shows you the order of how they built the boat. Cleat first, and then they put all the flotation on. Took out these, there were vents up here, which are not original to the boat. A lot of Lake and Seas had them. But these things, these are the cable guides for the motor and the steering wheel. And they're hard to find, but these don't even have any backing nuts on them. I don't know what's going on, but they're just floating and they're free. So off they come. So the steering wheel on this boat could be original. It's a 1958 Wilcox Crittenden steering wheel, and if this boat is an early 59 or a late kind of a, so they bought the company in January of 58. This is Parsons Corporation, and they were building a different type of boat. There were a couple of different Lake and Sea models that were made by a gentleman out of the Traverse City area for a while, just that 1 year, I believe. And then um, they got the molds from Chris Craft in January of 58, but that was the Biscayne model. This is a Caribbean. This is a new model for 59. So there is a plausible possibility that this was a very early 1959, made in the, they start usually July, August, like a car company of the previous year to make the next model year. So this could be a 58 Caribbean with a 59 model year, but made in 58 and using 58 Wilcox Crittenden steering wheel. Very plausible. I'm not saying I know everything about Parsons, but this could be a possibility. So I'm going to take it out, and then I'm going to see if this wheel, the hole is very large and it's missing. So the wood has been cut out, and I think that's because there was a different wheel, or at least a hub in here. I don't know. Um, I do have a true 59 wheel from Detroit Marine Engineering, the gold fleck, that I can put in here. But it's interesting. It's always interesting to take these things apart and see things. So I'm going to cut this out. These bolts are horribly rusted. So I'm going to have to take them out. I'm going to cut them off and then grind them off. And then the wheel will, I'll try to get it apart as best I can. I might have to cut to the bottom of this dash and just take it out because the wheel is in such bad shape. I might not be able to even get the bolts off, any of it, with the column. So I'm going to go ahead and get it out of there and then make a decision. When I start repairing this, I'll probably just make it complete again and then do it like they would have at the factory. Had a nice hole in here with lots of support. So go ahead and get that taken off. Well, I got the steering wheel off. Ended up cutting the plywood out of the. The plywood is gives it more support. Um, just ended up cutting it out. It was just easier. It's easier to fix it than trying to squeeze it out of there. So it is like I said, it was a Wilcox Crittenden 1958 custom. I have brochures from that era, and it's the only time they have steel wheels. And then 1958, they had this kind of rubber plastic, and it was the only year they offered it. So it's really has me thinking about why this is on here. And there's a lot of Wilcox Crittenden hardware on the deck. Could have been some experimentation. I'll have to look at even my records. I have all the papers, photocopies of the papers from Parsons Lake and Sea, and I'll look in there to see if they might have had some playing around in 1958, early 59. If it is, that would be really cool. That would be kind of a prototype, if you want to call it, that they were playing around, trying different hardware. Like I said, ended up landing on Detroit. The Detroit Marine Engineering wheel is kind of the wheel you see a lot on these, the Caribbean, the Saratoga, the Grand Traverse, and the Arrowhead. The lesser models, the Biscayne, would use the Atwood, which is kind of a gold fleck too, just different style. And then the really low entry base Biscayne Caribbeans used another wheel, even less fancy. Volrath was the name of it, was the company. I also am trying to figure out what was the original set of pulleys, and I'm landing on these. These are pretty common. I've seen these on other Lake and Seas. This literally fell off. It just fell off. These I found as well, probably not original. I mean, this is, I don't know why that's on here. This was up in the one of the dashboard corners where the wheel would go down and then run down the side of the boat. So that's not original. So I'm probably going to land on these. These are still easy to find. I even have a bunch of these in inventory, so I'll probably go with this. The fact that I have 10 Lake and Seas in my inventory of my own, I can go look at any time and see what's the Caribbean using for steering cable pulleys, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be this. So I'll narrow that down, start assembling parts that are missing out of my collection, and then including the hardware, which I'll show you next. As you can see, I've got the boat upside down and off the gantry cranes. I've built a stand. I'll lower you down here. This is a stand that I built simply out of a carriage that you can put the hull on it as well. You just have to put in 2x8s on the ends to the shape of the hull. What this does is it holds it up to waist height, for me anyways, so that it's easier for me to work. It's right here at my waist. I can reach everything and make the repairs. So the next video on this boat will be me working this underside of the deck and making all the repairs to the holes that have been made over the years. I'll also make new foam flotation pods, I'll call them, and I will glass or tab those back in just like they were done. And then I'll be able to put a piece of plywood on the back of that so that the steering wheel that I do choose is secure. Plywood, I should say, I'm going to use Kusa. I'm not going to put plywood back on this boat. That might have been marine. I'm not sure. It was maybe 1/4 inch, not very good. In fact, it wasn't even glassed to the back of the dashboard. It was just tabbed in from the back side or the underside, which might have been why it wasn't as good as they thought, and water got in. So I'm going to use Kusa, which is, in my opinion, marine plywood made out of fiberglass. So that's what I'll be using throughout the boat. And most of it is only in the transom, but there are pieces like the dashboard and some other areas that need a little more support. So let's look at the hardware and call this job done. So that's it for the hardware on this Lake and Sea. A few surprises. As I mentioned before, got these Perco step pads that were up on the bow, not original to the boat as far as I know. Found this screwdriver in the foam flotation. The deck angles, there should be 4. There's only 2 badly corroded, but I have extras in inventory. These are the part of the holders for the rear seats that are missing, and I'm assuming the mechanism for the hinge went with the seats. So these I have left, but I also have extras of those. And these are bow eyes, or bow sockets, meaning they go in the side of the boat of each cockpit. And you can put a bass or an ash wooden bow in there to, it's like a spring. You put your tarp on it, and that way the water doesn't stay in the boat cockpit. There's 2 different styles here. So I know those are not original that I know of, but a lot of people used them, kind of like the vents, not original, but something a lot of Lake and Sea owners use to help ventilate that rear deck area that does not have any ventilation from the factory. Other things, the Wilcox Crittenden, these are technically tangs that are used on the deck of a sailboat. They're used on the bottom floor hinge for the two seats in the rear. I'm thinking I will replace these with a modern stainless, which you can get something very close, and they're a whole lot more durable. These are made out of bronze, or maybe even brass, but I think it's bronze, and they are notorious for cracking. So those might go away. Um, the bow cleat, the big one, there should be two little ones that go on the each side of the boat just before the fin. So those are missing, and that's it. The pulleys underneath, this is from the deck, back by the transom. That one's, it fell off. There's still two on the deck underside. I will address that when I flip the deck over for repairs. I will pull the steering wheel and the running gear pulleys. This is the pulley that should be in there, not this Wilcox Crittenden brass one that's all corroded. Maybe even, yeah, it's corroded, but the bronze isn't. So part of it is probably steel. That is not original. So I have more of these as well. So when I put it back together, I have a few things I have to add to this collection, but not bad at all. I have a few Lakencies that have no hardware on them, except for the rear steering wheel. And that's something I'll address later. The steering wheel that belongs in this boat is not on this boat right now. I have an extra one of those as well. It's a gold Fleck from Detroit Marine Engineering that we'll put back on and put this boat back into shape. Other things, the foil on the dash, that's a kind of a stick-on vinyl. I have more of that, and so we'll make that look nice again. As I look at the boat, it's missing its dashboard plate. It's this Lake and Sea, but in more of an oval that goes. I have more of those. We can put that on there. Yeah, not too bad. A few replacements, but otherwise pretty good shape. So I'll add the inventory into this pile and send it off to the plater this week. So call this video to an end. Thank you for tuning in. If you're not a subscriber, please do so. You'll get your video notifications every time I put them out. I hope to get back to a 2-week schedule. We'll see. That's the plan starting in July. If you're enjoying the series or finding it entertaining and educational, please hit the thumbs up button. That gives me a nice positive reinforcement from everybody. That's always nice to receive. And I will see you in a few weeks.